Hello and welcome to this week's Cat's Whiskers podcast live. Yes, the date is Monday, the 21st of November. The time is slightly later than usual. We do apologise for that. But this is the first Cat's Whiskers podcast of the week. And my name is Aaron Lord, and I'm delighted to say that joining me tonight is Tina Taylor.
Hiya!
And fresh from his commentating debut this weekend, it is Jono Bullard.
Hello to you.
How are we both? We good?
I'm glad now I got that over with from the weekend. I tell you what, so some of them HC Donbass names were difficult to learn. I'll tell you that much.
Yes, well, you might have to help me out with some of them later, but we will. Basically, what we're going to be doing tonight is looking back on a very successful weekend for the Panthers, because for the first time in their history, the Panthers have qualified for the super final of the Continental Cup. Obviously, 3 games this weekend being held in Denmark. We'll start with Friday night. Panthers against the host, the Odense Bulldogs. Panthers skating away with a 5-4 victory in the first period. Ollie Bettridge opened the scoring on 12:52 before Robin Sterner equalised at 13:29. Captain Brad Moran took the lead once again for the Panthers on 16:58. There was the first period done and dusted before the second period, and Carter scored the next goal on 25:15. Callis, remember him? He returned, and he got on the score sheet at 29:43 before that man Robin Sterner got a goal back for the Bulldogs at 33:17. Going into the third period, Brian McGrattan, no points Brian McGrattan in the league, but he got a point on Friday at 46:23. And then Rasmus Lyo scored for the Bulldogs at 49:43, and then Dale Mitchell got a goal at 59:09, which meant the score was 5-4 to the Panthers. Obviously a very good start there. Just very quickly, Johnny, because I'm going to go through Saturdays and Sundays, but a very good start for the Panthers there against the host team.
Yeah, they were excellent. Panthers were excellent for the entire game. Odense only really turned up for the third period, and they outshot us, but it was too little too late then. I mean, Panthers were 5-2 up after McGrattan's goal, so they were on top for the majority of the game. I think most people were surprised with Odense being the host, but yeah, Panthers were just excellent.
Okay, obviously a very positive start for the Panthers, like we've just said. But moving on to Saturday, and we were facing the French side, Les Ducs d'Angers. Is that correct, Jono? Is that good enough?
Les Ducs d'Angers. Honestly,
I'll give myself 9 out of 10 for that. Panthers skated away with a very, very important 4-3 victory. But they didn't start well, with Jonathan Lessard scoring for the French side. I'm not going to repeat their name again for
Les
obvious
Ducs
reasons. Thank you. On the power play, yes, Jonathan Lessard got the scoring off on the power play for the French side before Jeff Brown equalised at 7:11. And then Lessard again took the lead for the French side on another power play goal at 19:27. So they were leading at the end of the first period. But then Captain Brad Moran, that's Brad Moran, got the first goal in the second period at 24:07 before Kudrock got a goal at 35:23, and then McGrattan once again got on the score sheet at 55:03 before Gary Levick got a goal at 59:38, which meant it was a bit squeaky bum time, but like I say, Panthers skated away with a 4-3 victory. Now this meant, after all the games played on that day, that the Panthers had actually qualified and they were guaranteed top spot whatever happened on the Sunday. But very quickly on the Sunday, after all of that, unfortunately Panthers couldn't make it 3 out of 3. against HC Donbass, with HC Donbass skating away with a 3-1 victory. In the first, there was no scoring before... Here we go, Jono. In the second, Viktor Sakharov got the first goal of the game at 27-28, that is, before Yegorov. Thank you. Got a goal at 42-58. I didn't take any of the... I took German at school, so there you go. Before captain Brad Moran got on the goal sheet again.
That's Moran.
Weekend for him at 48-46. Before Oleg Shafrenko scored the empty netter at 59-33, which did mean that HC Donbass skated away with the victory. But like we've said many a time, it did mean all the results over the weekend that Panthers are now in the super final of the Continental Cup. And Jono, obviously you've commentated on all three games. We were talking before we actually went live this evening of just how good the Panthers performed, especially in the first two games, but a stunning performance, really.
Yeah, absolutely superb. And I think unexpected compared to how badly they've been playing in the league recently. So it was a surprise to me, a very welcome surprise to see how well they played. And the other thing that was pleasing was how many players actually stepped up and stood out. I think Jeff Brown was outstanding all weekend. Robert Farmer, outstanding. Brad Moran, superb. Brian McGrattan was like a different player. He was absolutely brilliant. And yeah, players stepping up. Kudrok looked like the player that we signed. He was calm, confident on the puck. Dan Spang, his transition play was excellent. And you can't fault the way that they went into the competition and how seriously they took it. And it was no surprise that we came away in top spot with the way that we played. It was just absolutely superb to see, especially after the last few weeks.
I mean, Tina, Jono said, at the start of that it was, unexpected, really. A few people didn't give the Panthers any hope, but, they answered those critics in a way, didn't they?
Well, yes, they did on the strength of the play. I think anybody who has been, sort of downplaying the competition will. I think they'll be wanting to see that play be brought back to the Elite League before they sort of cast any judgment over the Continental Cup. I think there are still a certain amount of fans who really are not bothered about the Continental Cup, and they won't see these results as anything more than a distraction. Which everybody's got an opinion on it, which is fine. It was very, very surprising to see the Panthers dominate like they did. It was good. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's nice to have your team get some wins, and when we've had a run of form like we have, to a certain extent, you don't really care where the wins come from. I mean, you just want some wins to get the team morale back up. You want the spark that we've been begging for the past few weeks to be back in. So, what we need to see is this Panthers team come back to the Elite League and really bring it. Basically, bring the confidence off the back of the Continental Cup weekend back to the Elite League, and just so we can. I mean, we can't forget about the sticky period that we've just had. I don't think we're ever going to forget it because it's been that god awful. But it would just be nice just to let us draw a line under it, move on, and just sort of power through and start winning some games in our own domestic competition as well.
I mean, Jono, obviously, Tina brings up the Elite League form, and a lot of fans aren't bothered about the Continental Cup. They don't really care about it, and they want to see that this form is then brought back into the league. But the team over the last few weeks has been questioned. It's been lambasted really with its performances, etc., and rightly so. because they've not been good enough at home. But just taking this weekend and that European competition, aside and looking at that individually, it is a great achievement, isn't it?
It's a fantastic achievement, and especially when you consider that only 3 previous UK teams have made it to the Super Final. We had Belfast Giants and London Knights in the Super League era, and only Sheffield in the Elite League era. And that was 7 years ago. So let's not downplay it. It's a fantastic achievement to actually get this far. However, what has gone on prior to this, and since the first round in Jacker, is our league form has been dreadful. It's not been good enough. With the last time we got any league points was October the 8th. For a team of our stature and standing and size, that is not acceptable.
God, when you say it like that, it just sounds awful.
Yeah, it's not.
The last league points
is 6 weeks ago.
Oh God. That makes me feel a little bit poorly.
Yeah, and the thing is, now we have been left behind in the league race completely to the point where we aren't going to win the league because we're too far behind. However, this is now an opportunity to springboard the season. They'll have built a lot of confidence from this weekend. Now they need to take that into the league. No, we are probably not going to win it, but by it, you better come back and start performing for the fans that come and watch you week in, week out.
There you go. It's like you've been given a team talk to the lads. But obviously we will look to our weekend games later on in the week with our weekend preview podcast. But let's just go back to obviously this weekend, and I'll ask both of you this. But who stood out for you the most? I mean, if we go through a few of the points, that man Callis, 5 points over the weekend. Moran, 3 goals, 3 points. McGrattan, 2 points, obviously 2 goals. Then we look at Kudrock, like you said, Jono. He's got 3 points. But for you, who stood out the most? Who, like you said earlier, a lot of players stood up and grabbed the game and actually, took us to those victories.
I think who stood out most for me was Callis. I mean, and I think he deserves a lot of credit because he could have come in and thought, well, I'm just here as a fill-in. But no, he came in and he played his absolute heart out all 3 games. And I think he basically went to stick 2 fingers up at the Panthers, frankly, because he was like, right, this is what I can do. He was brilliant. All weekend, he was our best player for me on the ice. Absolutely brilliant, and I think he deserves every bit of credit and every plaudit coming his way for the attitude that he went into the tournament with and the way that he displayed it. And I think I said on commentary several times that I just picked him out to say how well he was playing. But of the others, Jeff Brown was superb all 3 games, got a lot of ice time. Brad Moran, as you mentioned, Kudrock, as I've already mentioned. Brian McGrattan, the 2 goals that he scored, both provided by Robert Farmer. Robert Farmer, another player who was outstanding all weekend. They were both almost carbon copies of each other, and they were both really, really good finishers as well.
I mean, Elaine's got in touch with us via Twitter. I mean, if you're listening along live, you can get in touch. And if you're just listening to this as a podcast, please do still get in touch with us. Our Twitter handle is @CatsWhiskersTV and our hashtag is TCW Live. And Elaine says, being as quite a few fans are saying, Callis, and obviously you, Jono, included in that now, was the best player this weekend. Do you think Panthers should be looking to keep him, especially for the final? I mean, Tina, I'll hand that to you first. And out of all the points, I mean, you thankfully you put some points together for us. But who stood out for you from looking at everything that you've seen this weekend?
Well, I didn't see an awful lot of games because I was away at the weekend. But I as you say, I mean, I've thrown some stats together, and you can't argue that Callis stood out. I mean, with not only has he come away with 5 points, I think. What was he? He was like a +5 or something as well in the plus minus. So, and and Moran as well. He's sort of topping stats all over the place, and it's I mean. The one thing I would say in answer to Elaine's question is I'm still not convinced it was the right time to release Callas anyway, but I think the club has made a decision, and they have to stick to it, because there's a certain amount of it's lovely that Peter Callas was the best player, and it's fantastic that he did as well as he did. He put points up for us and played really well, but. Why didn't he do that? Why couldn't he do that when he was with the Panthers in the domestic campaign? He was the guy when he arrived. He was the guy we were all looking to, because we knew what he could do. And he was arriving off the back of Stephen Schultz and Chris Lawrence getting injured, who were on fire. They were starting to look like they were really going to kick on this season. But why didn't Callas do that? Why wasn't he able to do that in the regular season? I think the trouble is, now that the Panthers have released him, it would look like an absolute circus if they took him back.
Well, I suppose we will wait and see whether we hear any news on that.
Can I just come in there? To be honest, I wouldn't care. It would look really, really bad if we took him back, but to be honest, I think he's earned his right after this weekend. And if I was Corey Nielsen, I would be saying to Neil Black and Gary Moran, we need this guy back in the team, because that's what he can do.
I mean, it is a weird one, the fact that, like Tina said, +5 over the weekend, but he didn't really set the world alight when he came back into the Elite League. I think he got 1 goal or 1 assist,
one assist
over the games, 1 assist. So and to be honest, I think Callas was that player when he was first with us anyway, a few seasons ago. You knew he had the skill, you knew he could put up the points, but he just wasn't consistent. But I suppose we'll wait and see on that, really. Like I say, this coming week, I'm sure we'll hear some news, or fingers crossed we'll hear some news on that. But obviously Callas was brought into the Panthers in the first place, and potentially back into this weekend because of injuries. Now, we have had some injuries over the weekend. Mika Wiekman was injured on Friday, obviously didn't play on the Sunday, so we will wait and see whether that is just precautionary or whether it's something that we should be worrying about this coming weekend. Lawrence, obviously coming back after a long spell out, skated on the Friday and the Saturday, but didn't take part on the Sunday, and neither did Matt Carter. Obviously, Stephen Schultz and David Clark didn't ice at all over the weekend, and I believe that was Jeff Waugh as well, didn't take part in the games as well. So, I mean,
Jeff Waugh didn't even travel.
Well, there you go. So another injury there. I mean, for you, just looking at those sort of facts there, and Mika getting injured, are injuries still a big worry for you?
Yeah, massively.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you can't look at that list and not be worried. I mean, your number one netty, your top scorer, your second top scorer in Stephen Schultz,
your top
David
Brit.
Clark, your top scorer in Brit, Jeff Waugh, one of your big minute takers on defence, and Carter, who's starting to put a few numbers together himself. That's a scary looking injury list. I mean, you kind of hope that Lawrence is precautionary because he's just come back.
He did look very rusty. Both.
I mean, that's
understandable. And understandable. He's not played for 6 weeks, so he's not going to be match fit. So hopefully that will have the 2 games will have conditioned him to be ready for next weekend. But
I mean, I think the most worrying one is Carter, because that came out of nowhere. We didn't know, we weren't aware of any injury to Carter. We knew Wiekman. I think Passel's been brought in because of the danger of injuries to Wiekman. I mean, I think it was a collision that sort of did him, so you can't you can't legislate for those. So that's a worry. But obviously, Passel's done really well over the weekend in his place. So we can, to a certain extent, I don't want to say that Mika's not important, but I think we've got the tools to manage for now, as long as it's nothing serious. But I think Lawrence, we'd like to think is precautionary. Clark, travelling, but not. Yeah, I mean, we were told about Clark that he was going to be injured. Schultz, we knew he wasn't going to be taking part. He was just going there to train with the team, which maybe is optimistic, because because if he is ready for training, then obviously with the team being away all weekend, you don't want to lose that fitness. So I think Stephen Schultz, I think that's encouraging. So for me, the worry, probably worries actually is Carter and Clark in that list.
Well, I suppose obviously again as always, we will hope to hear some information this week on the injury update.
Just on Carter, just very quickly, because I've said the players who impressed me. I've got to say, the 2 games he iced, he didn't impress me, I'm afraid. And I know he's been one of the players who has been under pressure and has been, the fans have been on his back. He really didn't do a lot for me on Friday and Saturday. I hardly really noticed him, to be honest, and that's a worry.
It's a worry for a forward.
Well,
yeah, I mean, if he's a defender and you don't notice him, then to a certain extent he's probably doing his job. But with a forward, we need goals. So he really, we could do with him starting to find the net with a bit of consistency.
Very true, very true. Well, let's just go back on some fans' views of the weekend.
Sorry, we've had a couple of comments come through on Spreaker, which I know you can't see, but I can.
Go for it.
Chris Lovell, he's a Belfast fan. He listens to the show every week, and he says, if you were Callous when you were recalled for the Cup, would you not have been tempted to give Panthers the bird, release him, and then recall him for the Cup? With a question mark. And I think I mentioned that earlier. You've got to give a lot of credit to Peter Callous, because he could have quite easily done that.
Very true. Is that all the comments on Spreaker?
That's the comments from Spreaker. Yes. So thanks to Chris.
Well, we'll go to Twitter. Thank you very much for getting in touch, Chris. And we'll go to Adam James Red on Twitter. I think we know him. He says, don't know whether to laugh or cry. Where's this team been during domestic hockey? Was the standard of opposition that good? ? I mean, these were good.
They were good teams, yes, definitely. Odense, we know the standard of the Danish league. Some have said it's above the elite league. I would say it's probably on a par. The French league, I would say the elite league is probably above the French league these days, but Angers had some very, very good players. And then the Ukrainians were a very good team. They came into the competition as favourites, and they lost their first 2 games, and then obviously won against Panthers on the Sunday. But I was very, very surprised that they didn't challenge more, because they had a load of depth, and they was a KHL team 2 years ago. So I thought they were absolutely going to wipe the floor with it, but they just didn't show up.
Another from Jester J71 says, great achievement by the team at the weekend. Any chance we can concentrate on the league for a change? Obviously, I think, like Tina mentioned earlier on, this is going to be something that we will sort of read over the next few days, and we will talk about in our preview podcast coming up later on in the week. And then just finally, 46233_Sam says, once again, Continental Cup doesn't win the league. Time to jump off the high horse and focus on the league important games. But let's wrap this up, the Continental Cup, as we look forward just very briefly to obviously the final that will take place on the 13th to the 15th of January 2017. The 4 teams that are in there, Written Sport from Italy, obviously the Nottingham Panthers, and then from the group from the Nottingham Panthers we're in the Odense Bulldogs, and then finally some team from Kazakhstan that I'm not going to try and pronounce. So obviously now over social media, and if you've listened to any media from the Panthers the last couple of days, the talk has been about who will host the final. Nottingham are looking into hosting it. They want to host it. but there's also rumours that Kazakhstan will potentially host it. Just very briefly, Tina, what do you think our chances are of hosting the final?
Tina?
Is Tina there?
Sorry, I'm here. I'm here. I'm sorry.
You've muted yourself again, didn't you?
Yeah, well, anyway, I'll spare you the details. Given that the arena have an event on allegedly that weekend, as you know, I saw a tweet from Steph Litchfield, our Panthers match night announcer. He's found that there is I think it's a synchronised skating event that is apparently on at the arena over that weekend. So that will put the stoppers on unless the EIHL are willing to move the weekend, in which case, obviously, then you get into a conversation about in terms of rearranging Elite League fixtures. So we're potentially going to have a congested back end of the Elite League season.
Now, Jono, there's been some talk about apparently. Obviously, teams or countries can't host more than one round. Italy have already hosted a round. Obviously, Odense have already hosted a round. That would mean that either it's going to be Nottingham or it is going to be Kazakhstan. Do you think there is any? Neil Black's talked about how he wants to host the final. It's a big thing. So, do you think the synchro skaters to maybe potentially move that? Because like Tina says, we've got games the weekend before and the weekend after. It's going to be, and I'm sure the teams taking part have probably got games as well. Do you think there'll be conversations going on to try and get Nottingham free?
This is probably going to be one of our best chances of winning a trophy this season. It's a tournament, therefore if we play at home we have a massive advantage. Therefore, if I was Neil Black and Gary Moran and the club, I would be moving heaven and earth to try and get that competition to be hosted at the NIC. Because I believe that gives us the best chance of winning. The arena in Kazakhstan, I believe, only holds 800 people. So is that going to be big enough? And yes, there's the synchro skating on. So probably they need to look at moving the dates, if possible. But like I said, if I was the club, I would be exploring every single option in order to try and get the competition at the NIC to give us the best chance of winning. And look at the kudos that would give us, because if we win, we'd be the first UK team to win it, and it gives us qualification into the Champions Hockey League next season. So get it done.
Obviously, we will have a special Continental Cup podcast, obviously next year, just before it. But it is exciting. I would like to say, and I think it's on behalf of all of us on the podcast, congratulations to the Panthers. It was a great effort, but like we said, we'd love to see that sort of performance replicated this coming weekend. But congratulations to everybody involved.
Absolutely.
So we will come back to the Elite League. Like Jono says, we're a little bit behind now, but we will go through some of the games and some of the talking points from the weekend. Now we will start, I'm afraid to say, Cov fans, with obviously the Coventry Blaze. They had a 3-3 up in Scotland, and it wasn't a very successful weekend for them. On the Friday night, they lost 5-1 to the Dundee Stars. On the Saturday, they lost 4-3 to the Flyers. And then Sunday, a bit of a blowout against the Edinburgh Capitals with an 8-2 loss. Tina, not the best of weekends for the Coventry Blaze.
No, nobody wants to go up to Scotland and come back with nil points. Much less, having a hefty defeat like that on the Sunday night. That's I feel for the fans, because I've been up to Scotland for a 3-3 where we've come back with nothing, and I know how absolutely devastating it is. You make all that effort, you go up there, you're dead excited. You take your little tour around your cities, and you have a few drinks, and you meet up with everybody, and it's so exciting. And you come back with nothing, and you feel like, why did I even bother? It's just so. Yeah, it's horrific to come back with nothing. I think there's going to be an awful lot of questions being asked internally within the organisation. I would have expected them to come back with something.
I mean, just on obviously talking from a fan point of view, I saw Craig Summerton tweet today, part of the Coventry Blaze media team, just saying how great the fans were that weekend. So a credit to those fans in obviously a very, very difficult weekend. And, Jono, we've talked about being in a rut, but after a nil pois weekend, rooted to the bottom of the Elite League, it's tough for Danny Stewart right now, isn't it?
It is, and he was the guy who was going to come in and bring the passion back to the Blaze, and so far it hasn't happened. You have to wonder what's happening there, because they have improved the team on paper by bringing in Ben Davies and bringing in the two guys they brought in last week. So you would be expecting them to actually do a lot better, especially on a Scotland road trip. But 8-2 against the Caps, that's a thrashing in anybody's book. So a lot of work for Danny Stewart to do, and I can imagine he's under an awful lot of pressure at the minute.
Yep. A few of the other results from the weekend. On the Friday, the Steelers went down 4-2 to the Devils. Moving on to the Saturday, the Stars couldn't replicate their victory against the Giants as they lost 4-3 on a shootout. The Manchester Storm, they managed to get a 3-0 victory on the Sunday against the Flyers. That's their first shutout this season. But unfortunately, the previous night they went down 5-4 to the Braehead Clan. The Devils on the Sunday, they managed to hold on to the victory as they beat the Clan 4-3, which meant that the Cardiff Devils extended their lead at the top of the Elite League after a 4-point weekend. So, Tina, Cardiff looking very strong.
They are. The one thing I would say is they looked very strong last season, and you have to finish strong. So they're looking good for it, but I don't think anybody expected anything less. So you just have. I mean, you only have to look at the Clan, who have been in a very opportune position a couple of seasons in a row, and still haven't brought back the success that everybody expects of them. So I think there is a weight of expectation on the Devils. They're in the new building. They've got their first full season, and they have to. I think they have to win something this year, and I would expect. I mean, you look at the table at the moment. I would expect the Devils and the Steelers to be, going at it tooth and nail for the league.
It does look that way at the moment. Right, okay. We're going to end this podcast with DOPS. It feels like we've not really talked about DOPS for a while, to be honest, but maybe that's just because I've missed a few podcasts. But over the weekend, there were two talking points, which obviously DOPS will get involved with. One involving the Belfast Giants and the Sheffield Steelers, which we will save. But first of all, Corey Cowick of the Braehead Clan in his game against the Manchester Storm. Basically, what happens is, I think it's the referee, Tom Darnell, gives Corey a misconduct penalty, and then Chris Wells, the linesman, skates over, obviously to ensure that Corey goes to the penalty box and pushes the linesman. He's not thrown out. He serves his penalty, and he ends up scoring Clan's second goal. Now, Jono, we don't want to see players pushing officials, do we?
No. Officials, if you push an official, you should be banned for a long time, and it's as simple as that. You do not touch the on-ice officials, ever.
I mean, it's respect, isn't it? Let's be honest. If we lose that, we've lost a major part of the game, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And you just don't touch the officials. I don't care how angry you are or how much you disagree with the decision. You do not put your hands on a linesman or a referee. And I hope there is a ban coming his way. However, he stayed on the ice. He wasn't thrown out. He scored a goal. And because of that, DOPS may not look at it. Because it wasn't a penalty that will be automatically reviewed. So the only way it will get looked at, I think, is if the Storm actually put a request in, which is ridiculous.
I mean, on that, Tina, do you think this is maybe a good opportunity to... we talk about there's still flaws in DOPS and the league admits that, but the league surely has to maybe step in here and say, look, the officials are part of their product. It's something that they look after. Do they have to say that, no, this has to be looked at? Because it shouldn't be down to, the home team or the opposition, of the offending player to put in a response in this situation, is it?
In this sort of situation, I'd like to think that there is some kind of provision for officials to put in a report which will get flagged up to DOPS. I mean, the incidents that have happened this weekend, I think are quite. I think they're very hot incidents, and I for want of, I don't know if this is the right way to term it, but I think that DOPS are going to have to show the size and weight of their testicles this weekend. They really are going to have to do something, because you like you say, you cannot push an official. You can't, this is not football. For want of a better way, a better thing to compare it to, this is not football. I mean, I've watched Premiership games where a referee is given a yellow card or a red card, and all of a sudden he's surrounded and he's got like 4 or 5 players right in his face, screaming obscenities at him. We don't want that. The referees should be respected. End of. And you cannot do that. And if there's no provision for Chris Wells or Tom Darnell to put in some sort of supplementary report for Corey Cowick, then it needs to be made.
Very true. I mean, I think obviously you mentioned football, and I think the most sort of profile incident of that was Paolo Di Canio pushing a referee over, and I believe, it's just off the top of my head, could be completely wrong, but I think he got banned for like 14 games or something. Yeah. But just very quickly, Jono, these linos, the referees, they do it out of the love of the sport, and if it wasn't for these people offering their spare time, because let's be honest, that's they're not full-time officials, we wouldn't have a game. So really, we do have to we do have to stand up and say, look, this is not acceptable.
Yeah, of course we do. And I think there was what was his name? Aaron Clark, I think it was, of Belfast, and he aimed a stick at Andy Carson in a game in Sheffield.
Yes, he did. I
remember
that.
He got six games for that. I mean, he didn't connect, and he says he wasn't. He was just going to bang the plexi, but he still got 6 games for that. So this guy actually handles the linesman and pushes him away. So I think if he doesn't get at least 5 games, it's an absolute travesty.
Well, we will find out his sentence, if there is one, in a couple of days' time. But we'll move on very quickly because we are running out of time. And this next one has it's been over social media and it is kind of serious in a way. But DJ Rutherford of Belfast was taken to hospital on Sunday evening after a collision with Guillaume Desbiens of the Sheffield Steelers. Now, this all happened after Rutherford checked Jared Hagos of the Steelers to the head moments earlier. Hagos had to leave the ice and sit in a darkened room because of suspected concussion. Now, I have to say that for me, this hit is one of the worst hits I have seen in recent times. I mean, Jono, it's a very, very nasty hit.
It's dreadful. It's an intentional hit to the head.
Blindsided.
Blindsided. I mean, Agos had no idea it was coming. None.
Yeah.
And Rutherford puts shoulder, elbow straight into his head. For me, that is at least a 10-game ban any day of the week. He will probably get away with 2, if that, because of what happened afterwards, I think. Now, I don't want to see anyone hurt or injured, and it was an unfortunate collision, and thankfully Rutherford's okay. He went to hospital, and he'll be okay. However, that shouldn't take away from the fact that it was an absolutely shocking hit to the head moments before. He gives a guy concussion so badly that he has to be in a darkened room, and will probably be out for a good few weeks. So, I'm sorry, Rutherford has got to be punished for that, because it was an awful hit.
Now, Tina, I mean, would you agree with Jono about the kind of type of ban, length of ban?
Well, who knows? We thought that 5 games was appropriate for Tyson Marsh's hit on Brad Moran, but that got appealed and reduced. So anything can happen. I agree. Rutherford's hit on Agos is awful, absolutely disgusting, and there's no place for it. Well, I mean, it's interesting that you sort of both calling Davien's actions a collision, because as I saw it, he went for him. He absolutely went for Rutherford. I mean, I don't think he had. I mean, fair enough. The intention was to stick up for his teammate. I get that. I completely understand that. But I think Davien's, I think his height advantage played against him in that, because I think that rather than sort of coming down to Rutherford's level, he sort of stuck up at his own level, and I think he's ended up catching Rutherford's head. So, but I don't think that should take away anything at all from the initial hit. I think both of them should, are quite possibly, or at least should be under scrutiny. Rutherford suffered an injury as a result of Davien's actions.
No, I don't think Davien should be under scrutiny, to be honest.
Well, that's you and I seeing it in slightly different ways, which is fine. But the initial hit is awful, and it should never have happened. And had it not happened, then Rutherford wouldn't have been injured, because nobody would have wanted to go for him. Well, not at that particular moment, anyway.
I think for me, like, the Rutherford is obviously Desbien's goes for Rutherford, and I think he's well within his right to do that. I think it's like you kind of said, Tina, it's a bit of a height difference. I would say it's unfortunate how that all played out. And like Jono says, obviously we don't want to see anybody injured. So Belfast Giants and Rutherford have tweeted saying that everything's okay. I've not heard anything from the Steelers currently on the the situation of their player. Hopefully, that's not long-term sort of injury. But I still think obviously Rutherford should be punished more severely than Desbien's. But again, we'll find that out in the next couple of days when we hear from Dops. But just very quickly before we go, just a few things to tell you about. Obviously, the Ask TCW podcast is coming up this Wednesday. Please do send your questions in at Cats Whiskers TV is the Twitter handle. You can catch us on Facebook, or we do have a thread on the Cage forum. Just use the hashtag if you're getting in touch with us via Twitter of Ask TCW. Also, Barn from the team wrote a fantastic article today that is live on our website, www.thecatswhiskersonline.co.uk. Do give it a read. It is really, really good. But finally, I just want to say thank you very much to Tina for joining us.
TTFN.
And also to the commentating genius.
Oh, I won't go that far.
It's coming for you, Murph. It's coming for you.
He's coming for you. Apparently, there's already people in the Ukraine that have loved you. They've loved your accent and everything. So we might be losing you to the Ukraine, Jono.
Yashkamashk.
Wow.
And on that note, thank you very much, Johnny, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Do catch us on Wednesday with the Ask TCW podcast. But for now, thank you very much and goodbye.